Today, I'm thrilled to have Emilie Choi, the COO and president of Coinbase, join us to chat a little bit more about what Coinbase is doing. Emilie, it's amazing to have you here, and I'm excited to chat all things crypto.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach. I'm excited to be here.
So you started at Coinbase, give or take 6 years ago. Crypto was a totally different world then. Coinbase was a totally different company. Tell me what it was like back in the early days and how that growth journey has been for you.
I have been at a bunch of consumer internet companies. Most recently, I was at LinkedIn for 9 years. And I started to get interested in the disruption of the traditional financial system. I was looking around and I saw Coinbase, and it just felt so intuitive to think about digitizing the financial system, things like making sure things could be 24/7, reducing fees, global, not local, all these different elements of it that were compelling to me. I signed actually my offer letter in December 2017. It was the peak of that bull market. And it was fascinating because promptly the market cratered. And I kind of scratched my head and wondered if I had made a terrible career decision. But as I looked around, some of the best OGs in the space were kind of just building and really focused on the future, and they weren't getting unsettled at all by the ups and downs of what was a very disruptive industry. So I put my head down, I worked really hard, and it's just been an incredible journey.
So every startup is a bit of a roller coaster. Coinbase is kind of that on a totally different scale. You have crypto winters, you have boom times. How do you manage the team through that? How do you keep people motivated through all that?
I think the quote that we typically use is, it's never as bad as it seems and it's never as good as it seems. And I think that it's a great mantra for life. It's easy to get overly exuberant when things are peaking. It's easy to get down when things are bottomed. Frankly, post the FTX implosion, things were really, really bad. What we look for is people who truly believe in the mission, which is to increase economic freedom in the world. And if people are missionaries, not mercenaries, they're here for the long term. They don't get put off by little blips. They're there to just build and build and build. And over time, they know that they're contributing to this mission. So that's what I look for in interviews. Hiring is probably the number one thing I focus on.
One of the things that I've always been impressed about Coinbase is that Coinbase has just emerged as this kind of continually shining light of positivity in a crypto industry where a lot of companies have struggled. There's been a lot of regulatory pressure and so forth. Tell me about the journey that you went on to legitimize not just the company, but the entire industry.
Yeah. Well, I have to give credit to Brian Armstrong and Fred Ursum, who are the co-founders of the company, because they did things that were pretty counterintuitive. Crypto is kind of considered this libertarian movement. And they actually leaned into things like compliance and regulatory and making sure that we always did the right things with KYC and so on. We focused very heavily on security. So these were things that they focused on even when it was early startup days. There wasn't a lot of money to kind of put towards these things. They recognize the importance of a sound, safe financial system, and that when you're handling people's money, you have to take those steps and measures. And I think that is what has held us through all the ups and downs of the industry, as some of the peers offshore have taken steps to kind of just skirt by the rules and so on, while we were kind of going steadier and making the right investments. And I think that's what has contributed to us being hopefully a beacon in the industry.
So I've always been impressed with the way that you are able to speak externally about kind of the high complexity things that you're dealing with internally, be that your culture or be that your beliefs on the crypto industry. I find that in fintech, it's often hard to talk about kind of policy matters publicly, but you've done an excellent job doing it. How have you built that practice into the company?
Through a lot of learning and hard reps. One of the things that Coinbase is known for is we took a stand on no politics at the office several years ago. Brian is a very brave CEO, and he just knew intuitively that that was the right thing to do for Coinbase. So one of the things we talked about was, if that's how we felt, why wouldn't we just say clearly and authentically what that meant to us, to the world, and put it out there? I think there was a very strong reaction. Some people didn't like it. 10% of our employees left. And it turned out to be one of the best things that we've ever done as a company, because we had a clear contract with our employees about what we expected at the office. And that's namely that if we're all focused on the mission of increasing economic freedom in the world, we want to focus on those things that bring us together and not apart. And similarly, we've had quite a few policy battles. And I think the old playbook for financial institutions is, try to have backdoor conversations, try to go to the mainstream media and make your case, all of that kind of thing. And one of the things that we talked about was, why don't we just say what we're really thinking and what our legal case is or what our policy case is and why people should care about crypto, why we think that there needs to be updated legislation and so on. And so we kind of just said, let's just go direct to our user base. Let's go direct to politicians through our own channels. And I think it's actually become a paradigm for what others want to do and model themselves after. So it's been really fun to do.
I love it. It's a big inspiration, and I think a lot of companies can learn from that style. Shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about onboarding. So Coinbase has set the standard for what new user onboarding looks like in crypto, but you've certainly challenged the broader financial services industry as well. I remember, I think, the best Super Bowl ad of all time, which was just a QR code bouncing around a screen, and you got an immense number of user signups then. How do you think about user onboarding? How do you balance kind of the need to onboard a lot of users with the need to avoid risk?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest hurdles we have, I think, as a company, is just given the very volatile nature of crypto, we have to think about how, when during those moments we can actually onboard all those people, we can do it in a seamless way, but also stick to our premises of high security, good KYC, and so on. So the Super Bowl ad that you referred to, which I'm super proud of, it was one of those seminal moments for us. It was the first Super Bowl ad we've ever done. I think we got like 40 million households and we had a high conversion. It was one of those moments that we were really proud of. And side note, it was because it was a call to action and not like the traditional brand Super Bowl advertising. I think it just resonated with users because it was so fresh and different. During those moments, we really have to make sure that we're prepared to onboard those users as quickly and seamlessly as possible. But again, that we're focused on good KYC, good security, making sure that we're looking for potential risk, fraud, and so on. And it's one of the reasons that we love partnering with Plaid is the onboarding experience that we have by partnering with you is so seamless. And so we're able to scale that very rapidly. That's why Plaid is one of our #1 partners for onboarding.
Well, it's been a fun journey, and we so appreciate the partnership and all the feedback. When working in crypto, we know the standard is impossibly high. Talk to me about kind of the institutional side of your business. In many senses, getting kind of the large institutions to be a part of the Coinbase platform is a huge part of the important long-term outcome for you. How do you think about this side, and kind of how do you balance the consumer complexity on the one hand with the institutional kind of expectations on the other?
Yeah, our bread and butter is consumer, and that's what the whole company was predicated upon, this large base of consumers who wanted to interact with crypto in some way. We did recognize that at some point, institutions would want to come into the mix. And I think that the last year has been really a story of institutions, primarily with the approval of the Bitcoin ETFs, which has been a huge, huge thing for the industry. And Coinbase is really proud we're powering most of the custody for those institutions. I think the big thing you have to think about when you just zoom out 10,000-foot level is that you have some of the stodgiest, most traditional old school financial institutions who are very conservative about the way that they allocate their assets, recommending 1% to 5% in some cases of your assets being in crypto because they think that there's huge potential for digital assets. And so it was just this moment of approval. It was a moment of validation. Institutions drive a ton of volume for crypto and just the traditional financial market. So it was just kind of a really momentous time for us. And I think it's the beginning of something much bigger.
I guess going back to this conversation we had a little bit earlier about the roller coaster ride, you had a lot of big institutions come out very against crypto. Now they've changed their tune. They're really leaning into it. Many of them are launching their own desks. And it's got to be this amazing opportunity for you to partner with the broader ecosystem and really grow the business.
Yeah, I look at it as this incredible learning opportunity for both sides. We have, frankly, a lot to learn from TradFi. Those institutions have been doing this for hundreds of years, and they have incredible departments related to risk and KYC and thinking about AML and all these different things, and also just the opportunities, the growth opportunities within traditional finance, including financing and so on. And then I think from us, they're learning that digital assets are a compelling new asset form for them to offer to customers. They're getting excited about the possibilities of what this can open up to them in terms of digitizing new assets. Larry Fink has been pretty vocal about the opportunities for BlackRock and so on. And so it's fun to see.
So shifting just for a moment to fintech infrastructure, of course, this is what we do. What do you wish were different about the financial system? What do you wish were easier to access? Anything top of mind for you there?
I think that the traditional financial system has elements that feel kind of clunky and outdated. So things like instant settlement should be no-brainers. Things like global access should be no-brainers. Things like onboarding should be more seamless than they are today. It still takes a few manual steps sometimes to kind of get to the right place. It feels like there's just elements that can get a little bit better now that we're in 2024. It feels like 24/7 trading and so on, that just feels so obvious. So I think it's more about, we know the things that can be improved. How can we just accelerate them? Sometimes the clunkiness of local and geographic regulation can kind of hamper some of the great stuff that can happen between different countries and between different parts of the world. So I'm just excited to see how we continue to kind of push what's possible.
So we're in 2024 now. Fast forward to 2034. What's different and how has crypto fully changed the financial system? Are we doing USDC transactions instead of ACH? Something else?
Yeah. A dream would be that you're doing virtually all your financial transactions in crypto and you don't even know it. It's become just a layer of technology in the same way that TCP/IP and things like that have powered the internet. And you don't even realize what you're doing, but everything is just working so much faster and better. And that can span everything from the way that you do transactions and trades to the way that you stake to the way that you actually develop on different blockchain platforms such as Base.
Amazing. Moving money on the weekends included.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
excited for that
exactly.
one. What's next for you? How do you think things will play out for the rest of 24? How do you think the next couple of years will land?
The good news about Coinbase is we have spent so much time building what I call an all-weather company that we're prepared for every scenario. So if the crypto market continues to boom and do amazing post-halvening, that's a special time in Bitcoin.
Will you explain the halvening for anyone that doesn't know?
It's when the supply decreases, the rewards to miners decreases, and hence the supply decreases. And so typically there's a very positive effect on the price.
And that's happening when?
It just happened. So you kind of watch and wait and see how things evolve. Ultimately, we're just ready for any scenario. I think one of the big painful lessons we learned in 2021 is we got a little ahead of ourselves in terms of hiring and being a little bit frivolous with expenses. And so we took the painful step of doing 2 layoffs. We tightened ourselves. We started to do more with less. And I always want to look back on that and say, like, okay, no matter how great things are going, we always want to operate like that because it's like these 2 pizza teams, they can accomplish so much more than these super bloated, heavy teams that kind of get ahead of themselves before product market fit. And that's why I think, post all of the hard financial constraints, we've actually been shipping faster and better than ever, whether it's launching in Canada or launching Base, which is our L2. Like it's like a very exciting time for us, and we've just been able to be scrappy and nimble and like harken back to the startup roots of the company. It's really fun.
That's amazing. Well, last question from my side. You've got a few thousand fintech companies that are watching, all of whom aspire to be just like Coinbase one day. I mean, they're building in all sorts of different industries. Any advice that you have for the fintech companies that are listening? Any advice on how to weather the roller coaster, kind of the things to focus on as they're building?
I learned this from Jeff Weiner at LinkedIn. Talent should always be your #1 operating priority. And the reason for that is that if you hire A players who are going to just oversee the business in the best way possible, it's all going to take care of itself. So that's where I spend a ton of my time and energy, and finding people who are just truly connected to the mission, and then everything sorts itself out.
Inspiring words. I couldn't agree more. Emilie, thank you so much for being with us today. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, Zach. It was a pleasure.